to the Skid Row History Museum and Archive, where we are about to have the official opening of the official opening by bringing up the official curator of the official opening, Hayk Makhmuryan, and all of his crew that have been working nonstop. I think they're done now. I'm not sure. I think they're still working. No, I think they're done. I think they're done. Come on up, Hayk.
Thank you, John. John Malpete of Los Angeles Poverty Department. So shout out to three people actually. One, my collaborators, Matt right there, without whom the design and a lot of the work over here would not be possible, really. And Jaiye, who was just here, oh, there she is, right, that's me. The other collaborator, artist and archivist, who was helping find some incredible photographs and archives from back in the 80s from the Skid Row History Museum and Archive. Just one other person that I want to mention now, and again, we'll get to the thank yous and everything later on, is Zach, because Zach, in his role as an archivist at the museum, where is Zach at? There, Zach is right there. Hi, Zach. There you go. Was incredible with his know-how, with just like, you know, everything from tech to knowing what kind of nail goes into this wall, which is kind of important because otherwise this work won't hang. I do have a lot to say. Those of you that know me know that I like to talk. I am going to be, the fact that I have something written actually is good, because when I talk without something written, it's much longer typically. So I want to start by saying welcome everyone to the Scratching the Surface 40 Years of Visual Arts in Skid Row neighborhood. Many thanks to all the artists whose work is celebrated here. There are a few of the artists that are in the room who have work, and will highlight and celebrate all those artists as part of this talk as well. But I just want to sort of like underscore this work. This show is 50 plus artists who are named and many more unnamed artists, because there's at least 3 collaborative pieces that probably, actually 4 collaborative pieces that have dozens of artists that have worked on them. So before I move forward, I just want to sort of like situate that I will just scratch the surface to situate the exhibit, myself, and Skid Row neighborhood in the larger local and global context. We are celebrating the recent history and continuity of arts and cultural production in Skid Row neighborhood through the visual arts lens. As I already said, we're just scratching the surface. One of the early meetings about this show, basically just within an hour, yielded potential material for 20 exhibits like this, or an exhibit 20 times this big. And so like that's around the time when the name was born. So this celebration, this exhibit is, among other things, part of a counter-narrative, or the real narrative, the real deal, as John Malpete of Los Angeles Poverty Department would say. If you don't know, look in their archives. They did a performance with a name that includes the real deal. Pushing back on the mainstream that says Skid Row has no history. Or if there is any, it's the history of reinforced anti-poor, anti-black, anti-migrant, anti-unhoused stereotypes, a history of transiency, criminalization, and pathologization. Looking at the moment in time we're in, there is so much intensified violence that uphold these oppressions, but are sold to us as freedom and safety. From intensified police brutality and ICE raids locally, to the very visible but continuing genocide in occupied Palestine, genocidal violence in Congo and Sudan that are largely ignored, and beyond. One of the ways Skid Row neighborhood connects and can add invaluable insight is that we know that the money spent on this violence could pay for housing, healthcare, and food access for everyone 100-fold. And crucially, that this is nothing new, that this goes back all the way to 1492 and 1619. Skidrow is anything but in isolation, and is very visibly affected by the violence of white supremacy, cis patriarchy, imperialism, and capitalism. This also means that when we resist, when we fight back, we are primed to be in alignment with a multitude of struggles for liberation, locally and globally. Now that we have the Skid Row neighborhood contextualized, before I move to talking about the art, which I know you are waiting for, I want to situate myself a bit. So I'm trained as an illustrator. Last year it was my honor to be asked to draw the portraits of the honorees of the 2024 Walk the Talk Parade in Skid Row, that's organized by Los Angeles Poverty Department. I worked in Skid Row for 17 years, since 2008. A lot of people know me through Studio 526, and now through Doodles Without Borders and Community Arts Depot, which is one of the projects that makes this show possible, along with a number of others, Skid Row History Museum and Archive being one of them. I am also a still able-bodied, housed, documented person. As a cis person, as a non-black, non-trans, non-woman person, I try to be mindful of the benefits and comforts that are pushed onto me, and to various degrees onto all of us, by patriarchy, by white supremacist, deep-seated anti-blackness, by imperialism and capitalism. Always at a cost to humanity and to access to dignified life for everyone. At the same time, as a descendant of survivors of two genocides, deeply connected to US greenlit and Azerbaijan and Turkey executed genocidal forced expulsion of Armenians in Artsakh just 2 years ago, a person who grew up in poor working class family in Armenia, Southwest Asia, during war, then a working class migrant in this country, as a person whose name is Hayk Makhmuryan, which sounds very unremarkable to me, but can be exotic, suspicious, or some combination of the two to many people in this country. As a tenant with no generational wealth to drop back on, as all these things, I also have a personal understanding of adversity in day-to-day life, as well as underrepresentation and stereotyping. One of the ways I try to account for both my privileges and oppressions is by working to align with abolitionist over reformist practices and end goals. In this country, that means aligning with Black radical tradition, indigenous liberation movements from occupied Hawaii to occupied Torangar here, to Dina Nation and beyond. And of course, liberation-minded working class movements. For me, in Skid Row, that means my work has to center on how Skid Row is connected to this local and global work for a dignified life for everyone. Arts and collaborative art project facilitation is what I'm good at, and it happens to be an excellent set of tools to contribute to this work. This is one project that, in collaboration, it's been an honor and a pleasure to be creating. So now, I'm going to talk about the artwork. A few of the themes, in no particular order. We have the artwork itself, so like paintings, photography, 3D work, drawings, collage and mixed media work. With photography, we have some examples of photographs here, both photography as documentation, as portraiture, as part of a Skid Row photography club, consistently meeting group that met for a few years in 2009, 2011 or so. Someone in the room might be able to correct me around those years. Then we have banners signifying annual events. There is one hanging in the window, but you'll see it when you look from the outside, and that's highlighting the 15th annual festival for studio artists. I should say there's one coming up, the 16th is coming up, October 18th and 19th of this year. This banner is the 23rd annual Black History celebration that UCEPP has been facilitating in Skid Row neighborhood. And these banners, in addition to being awesome collaborative works, are again a way to document all the work, artwork, creative work, cultural work that's been happening in Skid Row neighborhood. I just had a presentation with UCEPP actually recently and brought this piece and a couple of others from earlier years. And just looking at the work, Charles, who some of you know, Charles Porter, was able to remember parts of the festival, remember specific stories, and it was just one of the many things that I didn't even think about before, before that kind of thing happens. And you're like, oh, this is literally a cheat sheet for memory access. This kind of works. We got a phone booth. So this is an early project of Los Angeles Poverty Department. I forget, 1991. There is text accompanies it, so you can look on your own time. It's a reproduction of this art installation / phone booth that existed in Skid Row neighborhood in 1991. When you go around to the other side, you'll be able to hear some snippets of the performance in the phone. Portraits and self-portraits, there are a few. There's actually a couple of really cool stories, in that part of the room, where there's a painting of an artist, Gary Brown, who is sitting right there, and right next to it, the long and narrow painting is a painting by Rory White, also a significant figure in Skid Row neighborhood, of Gary Brown, and then right next to it is a early pastel piece by Gary Brown from about 20 years ago. And there are a couple of this relationships between pieces. There's a early piece by Alexander the Poet, a geometric piece on the column above the no shirt, no shoes, no problem sign. And then there's an early photograph from this really significant space in the late 80s called Another Planet, where Alexander the Poet, who is still very much around and involved, performs in 1989. Again, these are things that only happen in a community where there are other through lines and connections, and Skid Row is very much a kind of community despite what you might hear otherwise. There's artwork by youth. There is a program that UCEPP had for a while, and there's two masks that you can see on the other column, and that is an art project that UCEPP did, which is an organization in Skid Row neighborhood in 2004, I believe, where they, part of the project was to create a mask of the person participating. And they are also a good example to highlight youth in Skid Row because they've done extensive work and collaboration with young folks in Skid Row in early 2000s. Early and mid 2000s, I should say. And then perhaps just two more themes right now, and I'll move forward to the next part, one is artists that are very prolific. Maybe as an artist, I had to mention this, and also as someone who's coordinated a project. What I mean by that, there are actually many artists, thinking of Tabia as well, Quimana Tabia as someone who makes a lot of work. Specifically right now, thinking of two people. One is Little Hita, who most people here probably will know. Gary probably knows her. Vicky Cookson. Remember Vicky? Yeah. So she has two pieces here, right behind Bobby, and this is an artist who literally had hundreds upon hundreds of drawings, and this is to me, a highlight of how essential to this person this daily practice has been. She would come to the studio and she had another 20 pieces after a week, and then another 20, 25 pieces. And the other artist right next to her, there's a piece in the middle on the second row that's by Renee Nava, who some of you do know, who is more recent and still active. And it's actually a drawing of the Studio 526 space. And he also would sort of like come in, you know, pull out literally like 5, 6 pieces of paper from the trash, which they were already like being thrown away. Basically, it was like, what do you mean they're being thrown away? And he has sort of like this incredible, again, hundreds upon hundreds of pieces that he has created over a span of maybe 2-3 years, I want to say. So that's being sort of like artist who sort of like just produces a lot of work. And last but not least, kind of like going off of that piece, there are a few pieces here that highlight community spaces, places, buildings in Skid Row neighborhood that also happen to have a very personal connection to the artist making them. So since there aren't that many, I'll just note them. I already said Studio 526. Right here is actually the old Genesis Hotel, another really incredible artist who is no longer with us, Darlene, may she rest in peace. She did a lot of paintings of buildings in Skid Row. She didn't set out doing these paintings as a historical documentation, but they really are, because guess what? That building no longer exists. A lot of the buildings, because of currents of gentrification, and also just sort of like the way that SROs operate sometimes and many times and whatnot. This sometimes for the better, perhaps too in some ways. This building no longer exists. There's a new Genesis Hotel there, but this building not only had sort of like its place just in this artist's life, it housed one of the early, if not the first, office of LA Can, as well as for 2 years when I first started at Lampard Project, we had a gallery space there, and in this painting actually Darlene paints a painting of hers in the gallery inside the painting. So another piece right here is Star Apartment Gardens. This is one of the 2 pieces in the show that are mosaics. The other one's by Vicky in the display case over there. And this is a place where piece by piece happened. This is an artist who really, really loved that space and created this this sort of like celebration of that particular part actually of the Star Apartments. If any of you been to the 2nd floor of the Star Apartments, you know exactly what that is. There's the garden there and everything. And last but perhaps not least, right here is Hayward Hotel, which number of people have stated. There are still actually a couple of artists who like have been long-time participants, who are at least a couple, who are staying at Hayward Hotel. This is by Nick Paul, who actually is known more, well, he's known for many things, but one of the things he's known for is masks. He actually has a gallery of masks in the restroom of this very museum. And not just in the restroom, like it's around over there. But I know the way it sounds is terrible, but also it's kind of amazing. You go over there, you'll see it says Nick's Art Gallery, and there it is, all the masks. He did a lot of 3D work. This actually used to be a full 3D replica of the hotel. As you know, space for artwork and everything. This was had to be actually flattened from being fully 3D piece when he had to move and everything. But anyway, Hayward Hotel, make sure you come close and check out the details when we're done with this part. Incredible piece, very personal piece by someone who lived at the Hayward Hotel for years. Let's give a round of applause to all the artists that are here today. Downtown Gary Brown, everyone.
All right.
Tell us about that
piece. Okay. This piece right here, I was on the back rows of some legacy that displayed here when it came to LA, California. That's where I got my ideas of doing a whole lot of Egyptian stuff. And I did a whole lot of abstract. And I was at 1010 7th Street, right?
That's right.
Right. And Hayk is a great art instructor, in case y'all want to know the truth about it. I think we really miss him. He had a lot to explore, in artwork. He's an artist and sketches himself. But I think you can let me share a little bit with you about that. Thank you very much.
Lorraine, come on over. Lorraine, tell us a couple of words about that piece.
That piece right there with the heart. Well, it's me, it's the heart, because, working in Skid Row, living in Skid Row, being homeless, growing up, older in Skid Row, working with a lot of people. And I worked for a shelter for 15 years. And I learned one thing about hearts. Every heart has a different heart. Every heartbeat is a different feeling when it comes to somebody's emotion. Some people can laugh, some people can cry. Sometimes it's mental illness that caused this to happen in people's lives. So I'm an art person. Mostly everything I do, when they send me, in the pandemic, paint in the mail. I wasn't a painter. I didn't want to be a painter. I didn't think I was going to be a painter. But I always acknowledge other people's stuff because that's what I live among. So I started just asked my daughter, what am I going to do with this paint? I started throwing it on paper. Then I started using my hand to create art. And I would listen to music. And the music came up with almost 100 pieces of art. And I said, wow, this is like working with people. So I can do this. So now that's what I do. I have thousands of pictures of different arts, and none of them are the same. And to have this picture there, we was doing something at the new place for the showers and stuff. Sure. And I think I created that there. We were supposed to be doing a collage, right? And he had all the paints and everything, and I just hooked it up right away. Never knew he was going to use it, so you never know. But the hearts travel in Skid Row. And that's what we're here for, to help each heart in Skid Row to rise above any situation that they are going through. And I just love being a part of my community, and people asking me to be in their galleries. And I made 2 books already of art, and I'm going to continue as long as I'm around empowering people to help me create. And I'm an AA member, so one day at a time. And that's just the way it is. But I want to encourage people to always remember that dealing with individuals, you're dealing with different hearts, different conversations, different feelings, different connection, different embrace. And our world needs to get better. And we need to get better working with people to understand that. So thank you so much for allowing me to share and my work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lorraine. Lorraine is one of a photographer that is doing for years and has a photograph in the show.
Thank you, Hayk. Yeah, it's been a long time. I started photography at Glendale Community College and LA Community College, and I met my friend Dave, and I met Tony, and I met his friend Tony, and I went to his place at the Prentice on 7th Street. And I just decided that I lived in LA for all these years, and I didn't really know that much about downtown or Skid Row. So I just thought it was important that, I finally learned about our city, the city. And so there's been a couple of collaborations with Tony Anthony, who is not here, but he's a very talented photographer, and he came up with the Skid Row City Limit mural project. General Jeff came up with the mural, and there were a lot of people taking photos in front of the mural. And one time I think Jeff got a rapper to come. I can't remember. And Tony was like, I wish you would have told me. Because he has all these photos in the video. It's everyone standing in front of the mural. And you just see how big the neighborhood is. you have police officers, you have volunteers, outreach, you have little ladies, you have kids, I mean, just people working in the area, I mean, and so it's over a half an hour long, and there's over 500 people. I don't know. It's just one still after another, but if you let yourself kind of watch it, you can see people kind of expressing themselves. And I guess Tony's personality just encourages people. He's friendly. That's what I noticed about Skid Row downtown. You walk down the street and you say hi to people and you interact, and it's just a different experience. So I think that was an important project, and thank you, Hayk, for including it, and it's a great show. Thanks.
Thank you, Andrea. Videos, of course, video arts as part of the visual arts, and we have some examples going all the way back to the 80s and into the recent festivals for all Skid Row artists, and before that, as I said, festival started in 2009. Right now we're seeing some of the earlier photos that are from the archives of the Skid Row History Museum and Archive. And then on this screen, we have, I believe, 3 videos. There is a video by Tony Anthony that Andrea just talked about, Skid Row City Limit. There is a video by Bobby Buck, who is right here, of the Movies in the Park. Then there is also a short video by Christopher Chin, who is also here and has a small piece in the cabinet.
But actually, like I said, I got started using a flip phone back when I came down here in 2010 or something like that. And that's what happened. I went to an event where OG Man had at the top of City Hall, and he was up there, and I was homeless, and I was sad and depressed and all that. Then after I see him and General Jeff and all the people up there, and I went, wait a minute. This is spiritual. I said, as sad as it sounds, I'm supposed to be homeless right now. So it seemed like I took ownership of being homeless, and I started taking pictures with my flip phone that night, and it kept on. Then I went to Trade Tech, and then he mentioned something to me. He said, entertainers and politicians get large egos because they see themselves on pictures and videos. Then I said, well, if I take pictures of people who are kind of down and out, they'll lift their spirits. So that's when I took on being serious, doing photos and videos and everything. So now I do red carpets and all this stuff. So if y'all want to hire me, here I am.
Right here. Vicky, you want to talk about piece by piece / your involvement?
Sure. I'm Vicky Maturo. I've done a number of arts projects here in Skid Row over the years. And about 11 years ago, I started with a group called Piece by Piece. It does mainly mosaic. And that particular piece up there is a self-portrait I did for spring 2025 in a class with a well-known artist that we had there. And what was so interesting about it, as she had mentioned, was the idea that self-portrait can be so political. Who has the right to have their image shown, and what it means for people to see that person's image, other people in the world. With mosaic, as many of you may be familiar, it's got a long history, of course, of having huge historical political figures in mosaic art. So anywhere, self-portrait's a big deal. I've done other self-portraits, but in mosaic it has even that little extra step of political ramification. So it's an honor to be in this show, to have it seen. It's very exciting, and thank you all for coming.
Thank you so much, Vicky. Natasha Smith.
How you guys doing? So this piece compiled is called the Divine Feminine, and the reason why I named it that is because I participate in a lot of women's activities and things like that. I work with the Downtown Women's Action Coalition, and we are currently working on the Women's Needs Assessment Report. So my mom gave me this mannequin, and I wanted this mannequin to reflect me and like my power and my glory, like as a superwoman. And so then I had this painting right here, and when Hayk asked me for a piece of art, I told him I was gonna bring the mannequin. And then when I saw that I had the painting, I said, oh, these guys go together. So then I was like, well, they need a whole scene. So I usually do performance art and things like that, but instead this time I wrote like a small poem about my art and how I create it. My paintings are born from nothing in particular, yet hold everything one might see. They are not confined by a single subject or story. Instead, they move freely, inviting the viewer into their own reflection. Colors, lines, sparkles, bling, dance across the surface, merging chaos with order, simplicity with extravagance. Each stroke creates a rhythm, and together they form optical illusions that shift and change as the eye lingers. What may appear playful at first glance reveals layers of depth upon closer look. I do not paint with the intent to explain, but to spark, to stir curiosity, memory, or emotion in whoever stands before the canvas. In my work, I offer not answers, but openings, not destinations, but doorways. Everything is in motion, alive, waiting for you to see what only you can see.
Chris is someone who is sort of like a longtime friend and connected to the studio that I used to run, and because he was hanging out a lot at the studio, he just got connected to a couple of artists, like a couple of portraits and stuff. But since you have a sculptural piece, maybe about your sculpture or whatever you want.
Oh man, yeah, Skid Row was life-changing community for me when I moved into downtown back in 2001, and yeah, I don't know. I did a small sculpture project where I made a whole bunch of little ceramic figures and put them in a gallery. And at the end of the evening, people could take one if they wanted, as long as they promised to donate to an organization in the Skid Row area, working for people on the streets. And so that was one piece that I took. But I think what I really want to say is that this is an immense honor to be included in the show. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Queen Mama Tabia, tell us about your work in general, perhaps this series of works.
All right. Thank you. I'm honored to be part of this. Thank you for bringing that up, because it's. I remember coming to Studio 526, and one day someone of the fellow artists, Rachel, says, "You know about tissue art?" I said, "Tissue art? What's tissue art?" So she explained to me, and I decided that I was going to try and master this idea of tissue art. So that this piece here, each piece, is 1,001 little pieces of tissue put together to give you a message. And the message to me is for all of us to take responsibility to teach peace. All right. Thank you.
So, Caleb this finished 2 weeks ago.
Paints because it's something that I can do to base beauty on basically nothing that people have discovered. That's our people land, which is the first name for a continent called Africa today. So it's basically migration and movement in all different types of ways, actually in a certain amount of compass the earth. So it begins right there.
The show really starts with a small photo right to the left of the sign, "No shirts, no shoes, no problem." And that's a photo of Harry Rogers, who was one of the first honorees from the Walk the Talk parade. He was an activist and an artist, musician in Skid Row neighborhood. Someone who, way before my time. That photo is from 1985. John would probably talk a lot about him, but basically someone was very involved in community projects, and he was tragically murdered in 1985. But there's material about him, and this photo was sort of like, it was a bittersweet moment maybe, I don't know. Like, I was looking for a 1985 photo because the show says 1985, and at some point, before like 2-3 weeks before the show, I was like, okay, I don't have actually anything from 1985. It's like 1986, 88, 89, and with Jay's and Zach's help, our archivists, this photo was found. It's like, oh, this person has like a guitar in his hand. Is 1985, it all fits. And then at some point, I also found out that that was the year that he was murdered. But we have Andrew Sarge Porch, who I think it's a piece actually right under Harry Rogers, also an early artist who did a lot of this photorealistic work. And that's a self-portrait there that he did. Thank you, Charles Porter, by the way, for finding that for the show 2000 drawing. Apparently, yeah, he did a lot of drawings, gave them away, sold them in the neighborhood, and he passed away. May he rest in peace. Darryl Fields, whose name I mentioned earlier, incredible musician, has like a history, so I played with Prince, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. And so like, but also, I guess more importantly, incredible musician who hung out, played with Frank and Frank Nelson, but very relevant to Skid Row neighborhood, those of you that know Frank, that knew Frank, and had his tent burned and then died from burns a few days later in 2020. That portrait is by Paul Friedman, as a tribute to Darryl. Another artist, I kind of wanted to make sure I include this piece, who a couple of people in the neighborhood knew. Then I found out other people knew her as well, who are from the West Side. We'll call her LM. And she came and did a lot of work in the studio when I was running it. Had a couple of unfinished pieces, and I kind of was waiting for her to come back and do some work. And then I found out from a comrade from the West Side that she had passed away. May she rest in peace. Michael Vecchio, may he rest in peace, the person who made the mosaic piece. MRC, My Soul is the Rainbow, passed away a couple of years ago. May she rest in peace. Mariana Valles, right here, the large piece. Someone who has all these videos of Mariana coming down like, I am a Skid Row artist. And then she had a lot to say about it, and everything made total sense, actually. Sometimes she would have the mic, but then I have the mic, so I know how that is. Incredible portrait by an artist who made portraits of a few different people in the neighborhood, and then just people that he would like to make a portrait of that were like famous people. This is significant. So that's Robert Tolbert, may he rest in peace, incredible guy, also an activist, came and hung out with Caleb, we just figured out when he chained himself to the fence as part of a protest. This is incredible because there's many histories here, because it's called the Popcorn Lady. It's an incredible artist and friend of the studio and of the neighborhood, who, among other things, would come and make popcorn, and is discreetly standing by the door over there right now. And that's a portrait of young me, the Popcorn Lady. I think that's everyone. I hope that exhibits like this, collective work like this, are contributing to us. That's not just a hope, that's sort of like a statement. Exhibits like this and collective work like this is part of the work that's been continuing and will continue in Skid Row neighborhood of forms of self-determination. I wanna wrap up. I wanna make sure that I thank all the different people and organizations that have been part of this show. I already mentioned Jay and Matt at the top of my talk, but just once again, Jay and Matt, without whom this show would not be possible. Thank you so much. The entire museum crew, and especially again, because it's so deserved, special shout out to Zach right there in the doorway. And also a special shout out to John Landriette, who, along with being actually facilitating the museum, have helped with finding some of the especially earlier exhibits for the show. Thank you so much. I should also, I had this down the line, but while I'm doing that, let's congratulate Los Angeles Poverty Department with 40 years of theater work in Skid Row neighborhood. 40 years! So, organizations that have contributed to this show. UCEPP, I already mentioned. Charles Porter actually curated a show here a couple of years ago, and I don't know, there are hundreds of people in Skid Row who have lots of knowledge of history, but there are a few people, you could count probably on maybe 2 hands, that really make it their business to know the history and how it connects locally and globally. LA Can, with that large piece that's a tribute to Daryl and just support with who to connect with and everything. Oh, that's Matt right there. Studio 526, a bunch of artwork over here from the studio. Thank you, Alice, and the connections to there. Rory White's Works Continuum. A few of the early pieces over here are through his collection and work. I already mentioned a few times, the museum archive, of course. Artists who lent their work for the exhibit. There's a few artists, whether it's Shows Art or Vicky or others, who have their personal collections and have lent work for the exhibit. I should also mention specifically Michael Blaze, because he's not only he shared a early photo of the Skid Row Photography Club, which is an important photography sort of project and collective effort. In the course of talking to him and then to Andrea, I learned that Tony, who now many people know Tony Anthony through the video work that he does, as well as photography, got his first camera, or one of his first cameras, through the Skid Row Photography Club. So all these connections that come out through projects like this. The last, but certainly not least, thank you is to all the artists who are with us, both here in this room and those who are not able to make it, who made this show possible. Thank you. And so connected to some of the remarks from the beginning of my talk, I want to uplift a little longer quote from the end of the text there by Yusuf Omowale, who works at the Southern California Library, is very much within the Black radical tradition in terms of his thinking and analysis of the world that we live in. And he reminds us that we must refuse the rules that are meant to contain our histories. We should not echo articulations that we do not already exist. Because, as Yusuf in turn quotes Fred Moten, friend of the Los Angeles Poverty Department, I heard, we already are. We are already here moving. We've been around. We've been around. Thank you so much, everyone. This track is by Bobby Bog in honor of this exhibit, Scratching the Surface. Thank you for listening through 1 hour presentation.